National Education Policy 2020 is a very aspirational document, and it makes huge demands on teachers. There are a lot of promises that it makes in terms of learning experiences that our children will have, children or young people will have. And all of that depends upon the kind of teachers we have, the quality of teachers, the competence of teachers, the capacity of teachers to be able to deal in an increasingly uncertain world, in increasingly diverse country, in terms of conflicting, contradictory demands that are being made on them. So in all this case, there has to be a safe space for teachers.
The India-UK Season of Culture celebrates the deep friendship between the two countries, India and UK. What we really want to explore today is the concept of culture, how there is opportunity for policy intervention to enable change in the English curriculum, and how teachers can then enable and teach effectively diversity in the classroom.
In a multilingual classroom, when English learning happens, one of the biggest challenges before the teachers and the students is to strike a balance between different languages which are present in the classroom, but at the same time ensure that cultures are represented adequately. English offers lots of opportunities and potential. English, for example, can be a vehicle for cross-cultural communication, and it can also allow communication and transference across different languages and cultures. There is a lot teachers and students can pick up from the pedagogic practice of teaching and learning English, and in that sense I think English has some potential to offer in diverse multilingual classrooms.
Young children learn languages through a rich and meaningful exposure in a natural setting. For example, through conversations, storytelling, reading aloud to them with a lot of discussion. Now all this can happen only if this is done through the children's own context, where they're comfortable, anxiety-free, they're motivated, something that they're familiar with, close to their hearts. This is very important for all languages, but specifically for unfamiliar languages like English.
Teachers in India are constrained by professional development. So that's one important aspect in terms of the limitations that teachers face. Secondly, they lack the comfort and fluency with the language, which is English. So if they have to teach in a language classroom which is more sensitive to cultural diversity, they have to have exposure to our own country, India, but also exposure to another country, in this case the UK, or countries where they speak English as a native language. So they have to have exposure to the music, the language, the art, the people, so many things. I think it has to be a whole-scale immersion if teachers have to really be able to negotiate themselves through a very, very complex school ecosystem.
We live in a multilingual and a multicultural society, and the classroom just reflects that. Classroom is also a multilingual, multicultural site. Students come from different linguistic and cultural backgrounds, and we have to use these as a resource in the classroom for facilitating second language learning. Teachers are aware of the source culture, which is the local culture, the regional culture. But unfortunately, textbooks don't represent the cultural diversity. It's very important to develop intercultural awareness, that is, being conscious of other cultures. So I think textbooks should present not only source culture, but also the target culture, that is the culture of a country where English is used as a first language. And textbooks should also present world cultures, that is cultures where English is not used as a first language, where it is used as an international language. So I think as teachers, it's important to develop our own consciousness of different cultures and help learners develop cultural competence. I think teachers and textbooks, the curriculum and the whole set of materials should develop intercultural communicative competence in learners.
This research research project was an analysis of cultural representations of India and the UK in English subject curricula. We looked at textbooks as well as curriculum documents for this project, as textbooks are the expressions of the curriculum which include most cultural representations. We proposed a methodological framework for the research and worked with the British Council, agreeing details and scope. The team analysed over 4,000 pages of materials for this project. And interestingly, the research was able to identify the volume of representations, but also the types and diversity of representations, the latter aspect identified through a thematic analysis of the categories. This research will be informative and of interest for all, but I think can be particularly useful in informing policymakers, those responsible for curricula and textbooks in educational contexts, and teachers.
I think India-UK partnership can help in coming out with a policy for representing cultural diversity in English as a second language materials, or for representing cultural diversity in textbooks.
One important aspect that the education policy talks about is having cluster-based hubs, which is a good idea, especially for teachers who are teaching in our government schools. But if we can look at those cluster hubs becoming centers of excellence where teachers can meet, talk to each other, learn from each other, share resources, share ideas, that would be truly a case of the new education policy reaching its aspirations.
In terms of recommendations, the report highlights that there could be a better balance of representations in these curricula in terms of the eras represented, the diversity of persons and diversity of themes. There are opportunities to provide guidance for teachers using these materials in their classrooms and to increase representations in some categories. We hope that the research shines a light on an influential aspect of our education systems, the teaching and learning materials that are used on a daily basis in our schools. Supporting teachers engaging with cultural representations we identified, but also prompting those redeveloping curricula or materials to think afresh about diversity and to include a greater range of representations in their work in future.